Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jaylina, and before we dive in, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and giving this video a thumbs up. So if you're watching this video, you've probably been following this case very, very closely, as have many others. The brutal Idaho murders of Moscow college students Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan have shook us all. In this video, I will not be covering the case, but if and when I do in the future, it'll be when we get more details on the case. The information in this video is purely speculation as well as my own opinion. It's been nearly 7 weeks since those 4 university students were taken from their families, and police have finally made an arrest. Bryan Kohberger was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder as well as felony burglary on Friday, December 30th. Bryan was a Washington State University PhD student. He was studying criminal justice as well as criminology in Pullman, Washington, just about 8 miles away from the home where the victims were killed. When police arrested him, he was at his parents' home in a gated community in Albrightville, Pennsylvania, over 2,500 miles away. Now, if you're like me, you're probably a part of a million true crime Facebook groups. And the internet can get pretty wild. I think that we can all agree on that. In one of the biggest true crime groups on the platform, with over 152,000 members at the time, people took or have taken a very, very deep look into a particular account that goes by the name Papa Roger. The biggest reason for this, I believe, is one, the similarities in his looks versus the profile picture of this particular account. It looks exactly like Bryan. Now, it is like a cartoon. It's really popular right now for people. I think you pay a little bit of money and you can get your profile picture or just any picture that you choose. They take your face and your features and they make you into like a cartoon character, but very like romanticized, like dramatic changes, and you just look really cool. A lot of people do it, but this particular Facebook account, the profile picture is one of those cartoons, but it looks just like Bryan, and I'll show that to you right now. If you look at this photo, you can't say that it doesn't resemble him. Now, if this is all we're going on, yes, it does look like him, but no, we can't say for certain that this account belongs to Bryan. But people did take notice that this account was disabled after the arrest. Does that mean that it's him? Or are people going wild and bombarding this account to the point of pushing this person off of the internet? It wouldn't be the first time. Like I said, and like we all know, people can go crazy online. That being said, let's dive into this wild theory. So it starts with the profile picture, right? It looks just like him. Okay. I'm sure you've heard about his Reddit survey. If you haven't, Bryan, studying criminal justice and criminology, took to Reddit to invite former criminals to participate in this survey. So let's take a look at the survey. So it says, research participation needed. Hello, my name is Bryan, and I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In this event, that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as best to understand your unique traits. This study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. Your identity and all answers provided are completely confidential, and the link to the survey is also an anonymous link. This research has been approved by the DeSales University IRB. Participants must be 18 years of age or older. If you opt to participate, you may terminate participation at any time for any reasons. If you have any questions about this research, You may contact the research team via email, student investigator Bryan Kohberger at, and then he provides his email. So people began really paying attention to this Papa Roger Facebook account when he began asking questions in the group that were very similar to the questions that Bryan asks in this survey. Also, some of his posts in general were just really, really weird. So these are a bunch of screenshots that were compiled from this group of the questions that this Papa Roger character is asking, as well as just some statements that he's made that are a little off-putting. And people are speculating so hard that this is Bryan. We won't know for sure unless he admits to this, but right now, this is what people are speculating, that this account does belong to him and that he was in this group the entire time discussing this case that these murders that he committed with all these people who are trying to figure out what happened, which is so eerie to think about. But I think that's why people are freaking out. Like I said, though, this is all speculation. None of this is factual. This is all just like people's opinions and their theory. So let's go over these screenshots together and we'll see what you guys think. Okay, so one of the questions in his survey is, why did you choose the victim or target over others? Now, if you also see, it says, why did the killer choose that house over all the others in the area? What do we think is the entrance point to the crime scene? Questions asked by Papa Roger, leaving people, again, so just speculating hard. Another question on his survey, how did you accomplish your goal? Please explain what you were thinking and feeling. Another post by Papa Roger, one knife in 4 people. The killer took a big risk. The knife could have easily broken off or become ineffective after 1 or 2 murders. Are we sure there's only 1 knife involved? More questions on the survey. How did you leave the scene? Before leaving, is there anything else you did? More comments by Papa Roger. Do we think the killer took anything from the house? How long do we think the killer was in the house? And all these questions and posts were made throughout December. Another question, why did you choose that victim or target over others? Papa Roger posts, regardless of what has been released, I believe this is a sexually motivated crime. Interesting. Another question, how did you travel and enter the location that the crime occurred? Papa Roger, did the killer drive, walk, or some combination of both to the scene? So those are some questions that were on the survey that Papa Roger has asked throughout the month of December in this group. And I think that after a while, people were going back and looking at these posts and kind of putting 2 and 2 together, along with these other comments that he made. So let's go ahead and dive into some more screenshots from this group. Another post by Papa Roger. This one's actually in November. Of the evidence released, the murder weapon has been consistent as a large fixed blade knife. This leads me to believe they found the sheath. This evidence was released prior to autopsies. So at this point, Papa Roger gets into kind of a back and forth argument with Dustin. Dustin says, fixed blade means that it's not a folding knife. The way I'm guessing they could tell this was by impressions or bruising around the stab wounds that showed the outline of a guard on the knife. So Papa Rodgers says, Dustin, you wouldn't be able to tell that at the crime scene. Dustin responds, I disagree. If the stab motions were hard, the guard would have left a mark. Papa Roger responds, they don't clean bodies at the crime scene. The amount of blood must have been tremendous. Dustin says, due to the number of victims and assuming each victim was stabbed multiple times, I'm sure that there was visible evidence of a guard. For all we know, the investigators on the scene wiped a couple stab wounds clean to look for bruising. I think it's far more logical than finding a sheath. Sheaths are usually attached to a belt. Papa Rodgers then responds, but the police were very specific about the type of knife used. Dustin responds, who knows? Finding a left behind sheath seems like a stretch, though. Papa Rodgers says, why? They are very specific about the weapon, but very vague about every other detail, ? Dustin responds, I think it's more likely that they did closer examinations on the wounds on the scene than you think. They can analyze depth of the wound, width, serrated edge would be a big clue. I'm sure they have access to a database that would show knives that match these dimensions. Plus, I've never seen a folding knife that has a serrated edge. Papa Roger responds, they are looking for a very specific knife. And then he responds again, curious, why are you debating the sheath theory so hard? Dustin says, because who would carry a sheath? Papa Rogers then replies, who would carry a large exposed knife? Dustin then replies, Papa Rogers, sheaths are meant for belts. Dustin then responds to Papa Rogers again and says, I would guess he carried it in his hand from wherever it is he came from. A knife in a sheath could cause him problems. Papa Rogers responds, which hand? Dustin then responds, I don't freaking know, LOL. Why would you even ask that? Papa Rogers said, so a knife welding person walked from where and entered this house at what point with a large knife in hand? Dustin then says, how in the hell would I know that? I'm sorry that nobody is buying this sheath theory of yours. Dustin then responds again and says, if we find out one day and I'm wrong, I will gladly eat crow. Papa Rogers said, so you carry a knife. Dustin said, Papa Rogers, dude, give it a rest. You sound like a psycho. Papa Rogers then responds, remember, I made the original post and you have gone down this path. Dustin responds, says, oh, so since I commented on your post with my opinion on a discussion board, I should be accepting of your weird and creepy questions. Papa then responds, asking if you carry a knife is weird and creepy. And Dustin says, asking me questions like, which hand did he hold the knife in, and do you carry a knife with no context is just strange. You're asking me questions that only the killer would know answers to. Are you suggesting I'm the killer? Papa Rogers says, I'm only responding to you. Why would you even bring up the killer? The killer thought. Odd. Dustin says, sorry, I trashed your stupid sheath theory and you couldn't take it. Dustin then says, any other brainbuster theories? Maybe they found a receipt lying in the kitchen for the knife. Papa Rogers said, why are you angry? Dustin said, why do you communicate like a serial killer? Dustin then says, at Papa Rogers, I'm going to go out on the limb and assume it's not the first time you've heard that. Anyways, I would love to stay and chat, but I'm going to go back to living my life now. Try not to creep everyone out. Someone else named Marie comments, at Dustin, dude definitely gives serial killer vibes. So strange and creepy. A Melissa then at Papa Roger, you very likely would be able to tell due to the time they were found and when they were killed. So that was a whole back and forth discussion between Roger and Papa Roger and a guy named Dustin, which people obviously were very off put by, including Dustin himself. So here are just a bunch of random posts from Papa Rogers that are putting people on edge and linking him to Bryan. They just don't sit right with people. So let's take a look. Papa Roger. The date of killing was chosen on purpose. Thoughts. And that was December 15th. December 12th. What do we think is the height and weight of the killer? December 11th. How long do we think the killer was in the house? December 10th. 4 weeks in, no suspects. What is the motive? December 15th. The date of killing was chosen on purpose. Thoughts. December 21st. Regardless of what has been released, I believe this is a sexually motivated crime. December 20th. Did the killer drive, walk, or some combination of both to the scene? December 20th. A knife is a very risky weapon. If you know you are going to murder 4 people, do we think the killer also had another weapon? December 15th. The killer has a sexual dysfunction. Thoughts? December 8th. Why did the killer choose that house over all the others in the area? A weird comment from Jennifer. Papa Roger, because that's how you escaped Bryan. I don't understand this comment. What are your thoughts on it? Because to me, it doesn't necessarily make sense. So definitely want to hear your thoughts. So this is another question that Papa Roger asked December 13th. How did the killer leave the scene? Did he clean up at all? More questions from the survey. How did you leave the scene before leaving? Is there anything else that you did? Another post from December 8th. Papa Rogers says, did the killer stop at 4 victims out of exhaustion, convenience, or lack of knowledge? Papa Rogers then posts on December 8th, thoughts on this body placement. And then he proceeds to include photos of the house with the stains running down the wall, the lights in the house, and just the first and second floor plans. I don't quite understand what his thought process is on this post. Like, what is he trying to obtain through asking these questions? What is it? I don't know. I just think it's a really weird question, or a really weird thing to be like hyper focused on. Also, another weird post from December 8th. Papa Rogers asks, Google Trends shows the search history for the house by date. Lots of Thursday activity. What do we think? Yeah. Not quite sure his thought process on that one either. December 22nd, Papa Roger, day 39. The killer is not in the victim's immediate circle. Papa Roger, December 2nd. The killer is not a student. Thoughts? Papa Rogers, December 21st. Can someone post actual evidence showing where the bodies were found? Also December 21st. I know this won't be popular, but this is where I think the victims were found. Kind of odd that he keeps like hyper focusing on where exactly the victims were found in the house. And like, why do you want to know so bad? Papa Roger, of course, if this is Bryan, he would already know where the victims were found. So just kind of a little interesting tidbit about his comments. Papa Rogers, December 8th. I feel like the white car isn't relevant. Papa Rogers, December 13th. Fight me, LE is no closer to solving this than they were 30 days ago. And then Pamela responds, Papa Roger is wiped from Facebook. So his account was wiped. But before it was wiped, he was also in the group commenting about fixating on the lights in the house, which is also another weird thing to be fixated on. He posts this picture and it says bath, hall, bed. I don't understand why he's so fixated on this. And like Melissa says, why does this matter? Either way, I'm so confused. Then he says, that isn't a bedroom light. What does it look like to you? Says Matt. Papa Roger says, the hall light. Isabel says, it could be the hallway light or the third floor light. Rick says, Papa Roger, I agree. Papa Roger also says there are lights under that canopy and provides a photo. And Matt says, definitely possible. It's an outdoor light. Hard to establish what level the light's on. Both Google Street Views I reference are from different angles. Body cam footage is from the middle of the field. The same Matt person posts this and says the lights are still on in the third floor window in the body cam footage from the alcohol citation video. I simply don't understand their obsession with, or their fixation with the whole lights thing. If you guys have an opinion on that, feel free to comment down below. So last interesting tidbit of information, a Crystal posted on Facebook on December 31st, 2022, just a video of Bryan Kohberger removing video cameras in the area of crime in his premeditated murder plan. And in the comments, someone said, video was removed. Now, I myself clicked on this video and it definitely has been removed. You can no longer see it. So, I mean, did that video exist? I don't see why. Well, I do see why someone would make it up, but I don't think that this person in particular would make it up. But that video does no longer exist. So that was pretty wild. It's a lot to go over, a lot to think about. So I am not totally convinced that this person or any of those posts for that matter were Bryan or the killer. And I say it this way because Bryan is innocent until proven guilty. Do I believe that Bryan is the killer? I definitely believe that he very well could be. Now, I'm not done, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this whole Papa Roger theory. Do you think it was Bryan? Do you think it was the killer? Do you think that Bryan is the killer? Or was it just some random person who people fixated on and just drove off the internet? All of this being said, something that really strikes me, if Bryan is the killer, is his choice in studies. If he is the killer and he chose criminal justice and criminology, did he choose those in an attempt to beat the system? Serial killers are very few and far between today. With all the advances in technology and with DNA, in my opinion, I feel like killers and serial killers are far more afraid of getting caught today than they were back in the day when we didn't have all these advances and it was a lot easier to get away with these crimes than it is today. If Bryan is guilty, in my opinion, he was trying to cheat the system by studying the system. And that's just my opinion. That's what I believe, which makes me question everyone. Is this person that I am discussing a case with on a Facebook discussion group a killer? Do they have dark thoughts? Do they want to do these things? Maybe are they just too afraid? Am I going to go through the comments on this video and come across, maybe even interact with someone like that? The unfortunate answer is it's possible, but it's impossible to know unless this person acts on those thoughts and they get caught. Are they too afraid? If they are, in that case, then good. I hope they continue to be afraid. I hope that our advances in technology continue to grow. And I hope that the detectives on this case keep doing their jobs. And I hope that they bring justice to the victims' families and loved ones. The world we live in today is quite amazing, but at the same time, still very, very scary. So much to think about and so much to ponder. I hope that this case is solved sooner than later and we can bring justice and maybe a little peace to the victims' families and their loved ones. Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee all have GoFundMes, and if you guys would like to donate, I will link their GoFundMes in the description below. As always, leave your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section below. I really look forward to hearing your take on this theory. It's pretty wild and it's a lot to take in, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. So thank you for watching and I'll see you guys next time.